राधा विनोद बिहारी जू की जय। श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मरण मोहन जू की जय। नित्य लीला प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद रसत रसत स्मार श्रील भक्तिवेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्रील गुरुदेव की जय। नित्य लीला प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद रसत रसत स्मार भक्तिवेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्य लीला प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद रसत रसत स्मार भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद रसत रसत स्मर भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद रसत रसत स्मर श्रील भक्तिसिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य प्रविष्ट महाभागवत श्रील गोक्षरस बाबूजी महाराज की जय। नित्य प्रविष्ट श्रील सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नित्य प्रविष्ट वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबूजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपानुग गौरिया गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भद्रदास रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर प्रसाद वृंद की जय। नाम चय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्री उद्धव-गीता की जय। श्री निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। Dandavat Pranam Gargraj ji and Ganga Mata ji. Hare Krishna everybody. Om Jnanatirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam prajantamanupeta krityam dvaipayano virahakatara ajuhava putreti tanmayataya taravo bhinedus tang sarvabhuta hridayang munimanatosmi narayanam namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Shrinvatang svakatha Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridantasto hyabadrani vidhunoti suhritsatam. Nashta prayeshvabhadreshu nityang bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. Tavai vasmi na jivami tvaya vina. Iti vigyaya radhe tvam nayamang charanantikam. Bhaktya vihina aparada lakshai shitashtakama ditaranga madhe. Kripa mai tvam sharanam prapanna vrinde namaste charana ravindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Madhavi Didi, Dandavat Pranam. Okay, I'm going to just jump right into our reading today. Haribol, Sudevi Didi, Dandavat Pranams. Yesterday we read about all the elements, Sankhya Yoga, just Sankhya. And now, today, what are we reading? Today is the three modes of nature and beyond. Chapter summary. In this chapter, the effects of the influence of the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are described. Such knowledge ultimately culminates in an understanding of the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. Godly qualities such as tolerance and self-control are manifestations of the mode of goodness. Material desires, feverish endeavor, and false pride are indicators of the predominance of the mode of passion. Foolishness, uncontrolled anger, and insatiable greed are characteristics of the mode of ignorance. Every conditioned soul is influenced by a mixture of these three modes, and according to one's situation under the modes of nature, the false ego of I and mine take on various aspects in terms of one's behavior, personality, concept of religion, and engagements in sense gratification. A person primarily influenced by the mode of goodness certainly worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a matter of duty without consideration of personal profit. One who worships the Lord in the hopes of some kind of material improvement is primarily influenced by the mode of passion. Crime and violence are exhibited by those who have sunk deeply into the influence of the mode of ignorance. Although these modes of nature direct the thoughts and activities of all conditioned souls, they have no effect upon the Supreme Lord, who remains fixed in his transcendental position. Whatever is experienced in this world, the time, place, circumstances, result of karma, objects, activities, performers of activities, one's faith, development of consciousness, the destination after death, and so on, all these things that we experience in this world are permeated by the three modes of material nature. However, everything in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything employed in his service, places of his pastimes, activities offered for his satisfaction, the performance of devotional service, time spent in his devotional service, and so on, all these things that we do in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. The energy of the Lord is manifested in an unlimited variety of conditions of life for the living entities who are rotating within the cycle of birth and death. All such conditions of life are manifestations of the three modes of material nature, and they are the results of the conditioned soul's fruit of activities. One can free himself from the influence of the three modes of material nature by engaging in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. Human life is the opportunity for cultivating knowledge of the absolute truth, and any sane man will surely avail himself of this rarely obtained facility. By a careful cultivation of the mode of goodness, one can overcome the influence of the lower modes of passion and ignorance. Thereafter, one can advance even further by rising above the mode of goodness to the transcendental platform of devotional service. When one is fixed in the devotional service of the Lord, his ultimate destination is the association of the Supreme Lord in the spiritual sky, which is attained when, by his grace, the gross and subtle coverings are dissolved at the time of death. Okay. My throat's still getting better. So, let's see. Oh, Haribol, Satya Mataji, and Indira Mataji, Dandavat Pranams, and Kishore Prabhu. Yes, just in time, Satya Didi. Okay. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Gunanam Asamishranam Pumanyena Yatha Bhavit Tanme Purushavarjedam Upadharaya Sangsataha. The Supreme Lord said, O foremost of men, please listen attentively as I describe how the conditioned soul is awarded his particular nature due to the association of the three modes of material nature. Sārārtha-darśinī commentary by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. This chapter describes the different natures produced by the three material modes of nature, and how these modes manifest varieties within this world. Also described are the liberated soul and the Supreme Lord, who are transcendental to the three modes of material nature. Unless one rises above the influence of the three modes of material nature, one cannot give up the bodily concept of life. The analytical study of matter and spirit that is elaborated in the Sankhya philosophy, which we read in the previous chapter, helps one rise above the influence of the modes of nature. Here, the Lord gives a more elaborate description of the characteristics of the three modes of material nature. He says, O foremost among men, the three modes of material nature are sometimes seen in their pure condition and sometimes when they are mixed. The Supreme Lord will explain in this chapter how a person develops a particular personality according to the different manifestations of the material modes. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. By cultivating spiritual advancement, the living entities can achieve two kinds of knowledge. So Gauḍīya Bhāṣya by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda. So by cultivating spiritual advancement, the living entities can achieve two kinds of knowledge. That which is received in disciplic succession, and that which only gradually removes ignorance. In this manifest world, we find three things in our daily experience. We find the speaker, the topic, and the listener. This is the nature of the world governed by the three material modes. When the transcendental spiritual objective dominates the mind of the speaker, his talks will not contain any abomination born of the three modes of material nature. Indeed, his purpose of talking is to expose the abomination that is born of the material modes. If the conditioned souls of this world simply hear topics of Vaikuntha, they will gain relief from their anarthas, which have become temporarily manifested as a result of their material concept of life. All activities performed in this world under the control of the three modes of material nature are temporary, devoid of true knowledge, and full of misery. There is no possibility for materially conditioned people to obtain the eternal nature, which is full of knowledge and bliss, by hearing the talks of imperfect philosophers. In this chapter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the speaker. Because he is fully transcendental to the material modes of nature, and because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can establish the proper procedure for hearing and chanting. Because non-devotees do not hear the topics of Lord Hari from the Lord himself, due to being averse to his devotional service, they remain covered by the Lord's illusory potency. Being bereft of oral reception and disciplic succession, they remain ignorant of the science of the self and the science of God. Haribo, Hari Mohini Didi. Shamodamasthiti shiksha tapasatyam daya smriti tushtistyāgo spriha shraddha hrirdayadhi svanirvrittihi kama ihamadas trishna stamba ashirbhida sukam madotsaho yasha pritir hasyam viryam balodhyamaha krodho lobho nritam hingsa yachna dambah krama kali shoka moha vishadarti nidrashabhir anudhyama sattvasya rajasaschaitas tamasaschanupurvasha vrittayo varnita praya sanipatam atoshrinu. Peacefulness, self-control, tolerance, the power of discrimination, remaining fixed in one's occupational duties, truthfulness, compassion, careful study of the influence of time, satisfaction, renunciation, detachment from sense gratification, faith, modesty, giving charity, and self-satisfaction. All these are the qualities of the mode of goodness. Lust, great endeavor, pride, thirst for material enjoyment, false ego, praying to the demigods for material wealth, discrimination between oneself and others, sense gratification, eagerness to fight, considering oneself to be supreme, fondness for flattery, the ridiculing of others, boasting of one's prowess, and justifying one's actions by dint of one's strength. All these are the qualities of the mode of passion. Anger, greed, falsehood, violence, envy, hypocrisy, chronic fatigue, quarrel, lamentation, illusion, moroseness, poverty, fear, and laziness. All these are the qualities of the mode of ignorance. Now, hear about the combination of these three modes. Sārārtha-darśinī. The characteristics of the mode of goodness are peacefulness, self-control, iksha, which means the power of discrimination, tolerance, detachment, compassion, righteousness, submission, and satisfaction within one's own self. The characteristics of the mode of passion are lust, iha, which means great exertion, stamba, which means false pride, ashi, which means to pray to the demigods for wealth and material enjoyment. To pray to the demigods for wealth. Then there's material enjoyment. And then there's mada, which means enthusiasm for fighting. And there's flattery, desire for fame and adoration, boasting, and considering oneself to be the greatest. The characteristics of the mode of ignorance are anger, hypocrisy, moroseness, and indolence. Or indolence. How do you say that? Indolence now, right? Okay, Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Because there is no accepting and rejecting based on the bodily concept of life in the pure mode of goodness, the mind can be easily controlled. To remain undisturbed in the face of the dualities of material existence, such as heat and cold, and happiness and distress, that is called tolerance. To remain undisturbed in the face of the dualities of material existence. The best use of the power of discrimination is to cultivate knowledge of the spiritual nature, which is eternal, full of knowledge, and blissful. Austerity means to accept even painful conditions that are favorable for spiritual advancement. Truthfulness refers to speaking frankly about the nature of reality without distorting facts to please others. To instruct others about the purpose of human life is the best expression of compassion. To give up activities of sense gratification by employing everything in the service of the Lord is real renunciation. To give up hankering for the possession of temporary sense objects is called detachment. To act on the order of the scriptures and not whimsically is termed righteousness. To patiently hear the topics of Lord Hari is called faith. To feel shame in the presence of abominable activities is termed modesty. When one engages in hearing discussions of the glories of the Lord without duplicity, for attaining self-realization and self-satisfaction in this life, this is certainly an activity that is characteristic of the mode of goodness. Those who are influenced by the mode of passion have a great desire to enjoy the objects of the senses, and they are very ambitious, intoxicated by pride, never satisfied, always eager to amass more and more wealth and possessions, very egoistic, and fond of worshipping the demigods for material improvement, envious of other success, fond of being flattered, and fond of ridiculing others, thinking themselves to be the greatest. Anger due to intolerance, miserliness, and falsehood in speech, devoid of scriptural evidence, inclination toward violence, desiring without deserving, hypocrisy, fondness for quarrel, lamentation over previous foolishness, illusion, moroseness, laziness, dependence, selfishness, fearfulness, and lack of enthusiasm are the symptoms of people who are in the mode of ignorance. Sannipātastvaham itti mamyetu dhavayamati vyavahara sannipato mano matrendriyasubhi. My dear Uddhav, all the combinations of the modes of nature manifest the mentality of I and mine, which is present in all conditioned souls. The ordinary transactions of this world, which are impelled by the mind, the objects of perception, the senses, and the vital within the body, are also derived from the combination of the modes of material nature. You just check the comments. Okay. Sārārtha-darśinī. The conceptions of I and mine are transitory and subject to transformation. All kinds of ordinary dealings impelled by the mind, having such a conception, all kinds of ordinary dealings impelled by the mind having such a conception are illusory. The sense of I and mine is applicable to the conditioned souls and has nothing to do with the pure spirit soul. One who is very peaceful is not expected to become blinded by lust or anger, nor would he be found to be falsely proud. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. I am the material body, which is a product of matter, and everything in relation to the body is mine. Such an illusory concept occurs by mixture of the three modes of material nature. It should also be understood that material objects that the mind accepts with the help of the senses are a result of the mixture of the modes of nature. Dharme charte chakame cha yadaso parinishtita gunanam sannikarshoyam shraddharatye dhanavaha. When a person devotes himself to religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification, the faith, sensual enjoyment, and wealth that is obtained are the results of the interactions of the three modes of nature. Sārārtha-darśinī. Religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification are engagements impelled by the modes of nature, and the faith, wealth, and enjoyment obtained by them clearly reveal the situation of a person within the modes of nature. When one is attached to religiosity, the quality of faith becomes predominant. When one is attached to sense gratification, or lust, conjugal affairs become prominent. And when one is attached to economic development, desires for prosperity become prominent. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Because of the interaction of the three modes of nature, those who desire advancement in religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification develop faith in religious practices, attachments to wealth, and a great hankering impelled by lust. pravriti lakshane nishta pomanyarhi grihashrame swadharme chanuttishteta gunanam samitirhisa. When one has a strong desire for sense gratification, he enters family life and subsequently engages in occupational and religious duties. Such a condition is evidence of the interaction of the three modes of material nature. Sārārtha-darśinī. When a person has strong desires for sense gratification and thus enters family life, he performs his occupational and religious duties with great enthusiasm. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The principles of ashram dharma arise from the interaction of the three modes of material nature. That is why Sri Gaurasundar, while discussing the constitutional position of the living entities, declared varnashram dharma to be external and therefore irrelevant. Different natures of the conditioned souls are born from various combinations of the modes of nature. The servants of the Supreme Lord, instead of desiring sense enjoyment, display attachment for the beauty of the spiritual nature and the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purusham sattva sangyuktam anumiyachchamadibhi kamadibhi rajo yuktam krodhadhyaistamasayutam. One who exhibits qualities such as self-control is understood to be predominantly in the mode of goodness. Similarly, a passionate person is recognized by his lust, and one in ignorance is recognized by qualities such as anger. Sārārtha-darśinī. In this verse, the Lord describes the characteristics of those who are under the influence of the various modes of material nature. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Qualities such as self-control that were described in the second verse of this chapter belong to a person who is situated in the mode of goodness. Qualities such as lust that were described in the third verse belong to a person situated in the mode of passion. And the qualities described in the fourth verse belong to a person who is situated in the mode of ignorance. Yada bhajati mam bhaktya nirapeksha svakarmabhi tam sattva prakritim vidyat purusham striyameva va. Any man or woman who worships me with devotion, offering the results of his activities unto me without attachment, is to be known as in the mode of goodness. Sārārtha-darśinī. When a person is situated in a particular mode of nature and renders service to the Supreme Lord, his service is saturated with that particular mode. This is being explained in these two verses. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Those who are in the mode of goodness, whether male or female, become inspired to worship the Supreme Lord by offering the results of their occupational duties. Yada ashisha ashasya mam bhajeta swakarmabhi tang raja prakritim vidyat hingsam ashasya tamasam. When a person serves me with a desire to achieve sense gratification, he should be understood to be in the mode of passion. And when he worships me with a desire to harm others, he should be understood to be in the mode of ignorance. Sārārtha-darśinī. The word ahimsa means destroying one's enemies. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Materialistic people hope to achieve some temporary benefit as a result of their actions. One should know that worship of the Supreme Lord with such a desire is to be considered in the mode of passion, and activities performed with an intention of harming others are understood to be impelled by the mode of ignorance. Desire for wealth, followers, and fame is in the mode of passion, and the desire for achieving victory over others by means of violence is in the mode of ignorance. Sattvam rajastama iti guna jivasya naivame chitta jayaistu bhutanam sajjamano nibaddhate. Haribol Champaktiri. The three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, these three modes influence the conditioned souls, but not me. Manifesting within the mind, the modes of nature induce the living entity to become attached to the material bodies and the objects of the senses, causing him to be bound to material nature. Sārārtha-darśinī. The three modes of material nature bind the living entities, but not the Supreme Lord. The material modes act within the mind of the living entities, manifesting themselves as material designations. By the influence of the modes of nature, the living entities become conditioned, thinking the material body to be the self, and the material objects as meant for their enjoyment. However, the Supreme Lord is never conditioned by nature's modes, because the material nature works under his direction. Although he is the origin of the cosmic manifestation, he eternally remains in his transcendental position. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The speaker of this chapter as a supreme instructor, while describing the living entity's entanglement in material nature, revealed to Uddhava that he himself is never overwhelmed by the combination of nature's three modes. Yadetaro jayet sattvam bhasvaram vishadam shivam tada sukhena yujyeta dharma jnana divi puman. When the pure, illuminating, and auspicious mode of goodness predominates over passion and ignorance, one becomes endowed with happiness. Knowledge, piety, and other good qualities. Sārārtha-darśinī. Conditioned souls and the three modes of material nature are forced, and the imposers of force. Conditioned souls and the three modes of material nature are forced and the imposers of force, respectively. The conditioned souls are forced, and the modes of material nature are the imposers of force. How the living entities become conditioned is being explained in these three verses. When the mode of goodness conquers the modes of passion and ignorance, one becomes bright, pure, peaceful, auspicious, noble, pious, and wise. These qualities are the source of happiness for a person in the mode of goodness. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. In the material conception of life, male and female are considered the enjoyer and the enjoyed. When a person is able to minimize the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance by cultivation of the mode of goodness, qualities such as peacefulness give him a sense of satisfaction. Yada jayat tamasatvam raja sangam bhidachalam tada dukhena yujeta karmana yashasa shriya. When the mode of passion, which causes attachment, separatism, and activity, overwhelms the mode of ignorance and goodness, a man works hard to acquire wealth and fame. Thus, in the mode of passion, he struggles hard and experiences anxiety. Sārārtha-darśinī. When, by acting in the mode of passion, the modes of ignorance and goodness are subdued, one suffers various forms of distress. It is stated in the Vedic literature that one experiences fear due to absorption in matter. Under the influence of the mode of passion, one performs fruitive activities to achieve wealth and fame. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. When the mode of passion becomes prominent, subduing the influence of the modes of ignorance and goodness, One desires to become famous by lording it over material nature, but this ultimately brings him great unhappiness. Yada jayir rajasattvam tamo murdam layam jadam yujeta shokamohabhyam nidraya hingsaya shaya. When the mode of ignorance defeats the modes of goodness and passion, it covers a person's consciousness so that he is deprived of all sense of discrimination. Falling into lamentation and illusion, a person in the mode of ignorance sleeps excessively, indulges in false hopes, and is violent toward others. Sārārtha-darśinī. When the modes of goodness and passion are overtaken by the mode of ignorance, which destroys the power of discrimination and covers the spirit soul, one exhibits grief, illusion, envy, laziness, lack of enthusiasm, and impractical ambitions. However, when, by engagement in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, one transcends the influence of the three material modes, one simply feels transcendental ecstasy. This will be described later on. When the mode of ignorance becomes firmly seated in one's heart, having subdued the modes of goodness and passion, one becomes a reservoir of lamentation, illusion, lethargy, envy, and aggression. Yada chittam prasideta indriyanam chanirvirti dehe bhayam manosangam tat sattvam vidimat param. When consciousness becomes clear and the senses are detached from their objects, one becomes fearless, even within the material body, and detached from the workings of the material mind. You should situation to be the predominance in the mode of the mode of goodness, in which one has the opportunity to realize me. Sārārtha-darśinī. When the heart becomes pure, one's thirst for sense gratification diminishes almost to nil. As the mind becomes detached from the three modes of material nature, it can find satisfaction being fixed at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. When one is nurturing the mode of goodness, detachment from sense gratification relieves one of the hard labor required to maintain an opulent material position and enables one to devote himself to the service of the Supreme Lord. Haribol, Raseshwari Mataji, I was wondering where you were. Glad you made it. Vikurvam kriyaya chadhir anivritish chachetasam gatra svastyam manobhrantam raja etar nishyamaya. You should understand the influence of the mode of passion by its symptoms, the clouding of intelligence. Who's calling me again and again? Let me just say, I can't talk. There. Sorry. You should understand the influence of the mode of passion by its symptoms, the clouding of intelligence because of too much activity, the great attachment of the perceiving senses to their objects, an unhealthy condition of the working physical or organ. An unhealthy condition of the working physical or organs, the working physical organs, and great disturbance within the mind. Sorry, I don't know why I couldn't read that. Sārārtha-darśinī. When the heart is always disturbed by unlimited desires for acquiring that which attracts it, and when the senses constantly urge one for gratification, it is to be understood that the mode of passion is prominent. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Varieties of material attachment, as well as insatiable greed and continuous thirst for material enjoyment, are found in a person who is agitated by the mode of passion. Siddhachittam viliyeta chetaso grahane kshamam mano nashtam tamoglanis tamastar upadharaya. When one's higher awareness fails and one is unable to focus his attention, his mind becomes dull, manifesting ignorance and depression. You should understand this to be caused by a predominance of the mode of ignorance. Sārārtha-darśinī. When the heart becomes practically inert and one is unable to concentrate his mind, it is to be understood that the mode of ignorance has become prominent. However, whatever one's situation may be under the influence of the modes of nature, if he begins to cultivate the devotional service of the Lord, beginning with hearing and chanting, the slackening of the modes will immediately begin to take place. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Those who are deeply entrenched in the modes of ignorance find it very difficult to apply themselves to any sort of regulated existence. Being overwhelmed by inertia, foolishness, and even madness, such persons risk falling down to the lower species of life. Edamane gune sattve devanam balamedhate asuranam charajasi tamasyuddhava-rakshasam. O Uddhav, with the increase of the mode of goodness, the strength of the demigods also increases. When the mode of passion is enhanced, those who are demoniac become strong. And with the rise of the mode of ignorance, the strength of wicked persons increases. Sārārtha-darśinī. By the increase of the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, the influence of the demigods, asuras, and rakshasas also increases, respectfully. What's the difference between an asura and a rakshasa? I guess an asura isn't necessarily like wicked, but rakshasas are wicked. When the mode of pure goodness is enhanced due to the execution of devotional service, the prowess of the devotees flourishes. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The demigods have the tendency to enhance the mode of goodness. The asuras have the tendency to enhance the mode of passion, and the rakshasas have the tendency to enhance the mode of ignorance. Sattvaj, just checking the comments. Sattvajja garanam vidyad rajasa swapnamadishet prasvapvam tamasa jantos turiyam trishu santatam. It should be understood that alertness is caused by the mode of goodness. Sleep with dreaming is caused by the mode of passion, and deep dreamless sleep is caused by the mode of ignorance. The fourth state of consciousness, which is transcendental, continually exists, even as the other three are manifest. Sārārtha-darśinī. The three states of material consciousness are herein described in relation to the three modes of material nature. The fourth, or the transcendental state of consciousness, is not affected by the three material modes. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Those who are in the mode of goodness are awake to their real self-interest. Those who are predominantly in the mode of passion are sleeping on the lap of the material nature, dreaming of becoming happy by means of sense gratification. Those who are in the mode of ignorance are in the deep slumber of nescience, which is practically a state of unconsciousness. However, those who cultivate the mode of pure goodness are always under the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where there is no influence of mundane goodness, passion, or ignorance. Upari upari gacchanti Satvena brahmana jana tamasādodha amukyar rajasantaracharinaha. Those who are dedicated to Vedic culture go to the higher planets, such as Brahmaloka, being absorbed in the mode of goodness. Those who are in the mode of ignorance take birth in the lower species of life. And those who are in the mode of passion continue to transmigrate from one human body to another. Sārārtha-darśinī. The mode of ignorance carries one to the upper planetary systems, up to Brahmaloka. The mode of passion causes one to transmigrate in human society. The mode of pure goodness, which is cultivated by those engaged in devotional service, carries one to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. By the influence of the mode of goodness, knowers of Brahman surpass the Shudra's lamentation. The Vaishya's desire for wealth, by the influence of the mode of goodness, knowers of Brahman surpass the Sudra's lamentation, the Vaishya's desire for wealth, and the Kshatriya's thirst for power and influence. Those who are firmly situated in the mode of ignorance gradually go down to the status of non-moving entities, such as trees. When one is influenced by the mode of passion, he will sometimes advance to a higher status of human birth and sometimes degrade to an uncivilized one. Sattve pralina svaryanti naralokam rajolaya tamolayas tunirayam yanti mam eva nirguna. Those who leave this world in the mode of goodness go to the heavenly planets. Those who die in the mode of passion remain in the society of human beings. And those who pass away from the material body in the mode of ignorance go to hell. But those who are free from the influence of the three modes of material nature attain my supreme abode. Who the heck keeps on calling me? It's so annoying. Somebody contacted me about the Gauḍīya Kirtan app. So annoying. I made myself accessible in the app, that's why I sometimes get calls like that. Okay, Sārārtha-darśinī. What happens to those who die while absorbed in a particular mode of nature is explained in this verse. Whenever a particular mode is prominent, it determines his destination after death. If one dies in the mode of goodness, he ascends to the heavenly planets. If one dies in the mode of passion, he remains within human society on this earth. If one dies in the mode of ignorance, he traverses the path to hell. The Supreme Lord has not said at the time of death regarding those who are situated on the transcendental platform, because they attain shelter at his lotus feet even before quitting their present body. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. One who is situated in the mode of goodness goes to the heavenly planets when he leaves his present body. One predominantly in the mode of passion, with a touch of goodness, remains on this earthly planet. And one in the mode of ignorance goes to the hellish planets. But persons situated beyond the influence of the three modes of material nature are transcendentally situated, and therefore traverse the path to Vaikuntha. Mararpanam nishvalam va satvikam nejakarmatat rajasam falasankalpam hingsa prayaditamasam. Work done as an offering to me without attachment to the result is in the mode of goodness. Work performed with the desire to enjoy the results is in the mode of passion. And violent work impelled by envy is in the mode of ignorance. Sārārtha-darśinī. The fruit of one's action should be offered to the Supreme Lord. Sri Narad Muni has said that if the fruits of one's activities are not offered to the Lord, then they bind one to the cycle of birth and death. The word madarpan can also be taken to mean that if activities performed in the modes of passion and ignorance are offered to the Supreme Lord, they transform into activities in the mode of goodness. If activities are performed with an intention to enjoy its fruits, they are considered to be in the mode of passion. Sinful activities are performed with the intention of harming others. Those are in the mode of ignorance. The word adi, indicating pride and violence, refers to activities in the mode of ignorance. Activities of devotion, such as chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord, are transcendental forms of work beyond the modes of nature. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Those on the platform of goodness renounce material enjoyment that is contrary to religious principles and surrender to the Supreme Lord. Those in the mode of passion desire sense gratification and work very hard to achieve it. Those in the modes of ignorance manifest pride and envy. Kaivalyam satikam jnanam rajo vaikalpikam chayat prakritam tamasam jnanam manishtam nirgunam smritam. What verse are we reading to? No, we can't be reading to 36. That's way too far. Okay. Knowledge of the distinction between matter and spirit is in the mode of goodness. Knowledge based on the dualities of material existence is in the mode of passion. And knowledge that simply results in foolishness is in the mode of ignorance. Knowledge of me, however, is transcendental. Sārārtha-darśinī. Here the Supreme Lord describes 4 types of knowledge. So there's 4 types of knowledge, and 3 of these are within the jurisdiction of the modes of nature, and 1 is transcendental. The word kaivalyam means that which has nothing to do with the material body, and such knowledge is considered to be sattvika. Speculative knowledge about the nature of the self is considered to be in the mode of passion, and knowledge of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending is in the mode of ignorance. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. By rendering service to the Supreme Lord, who is one without a second, the knowledge of a person who is situated in the mode of goodness is gradually raised to the transcendental platform. A devotee is one who accepts Vishnu as his only worshipable Lord and concludes that pleasing Lord Vishnu is the ultimate goal of life. Being deprived of spiritual knowledge, those who are in the mode of passion desire varieties of material enjoyment and thus sometimes work fervently for that end. And sometimes, becoming disgusted, they strive for renunciation. People in the mode of ignorance become intoxicated while performing all sorts of abominable activities, and they consider self-ruination to be the goal of life. The devotees of the Supreme Lord dedicate themselves to the favorable cultivation of Krishna consciousness, knowing that love of Krishna is the ultimate goal of life. Vanam tu satviko vaso gramo rajasa uchyate tamasang dyuta sadanam maniketam tu nirgunam. Residence in the forest is in the mode of goodness. Residence in a town is in the mode of passion. Residence in a gambling house is in the mode of ignorance. And residence in my abode is transcendental. Sārārtha-darśinī. To live in a temple or in a holy place is transcendental because the Lord is present there. These are the words of Sri Gosvāmī. As a touchstone turns into iron into gold, similarly, the presence of the Supreme Lord turns any place into a transcendental abode. These are the words of Jiva Goswami. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Many people desiring to cultivate the mode of goodness go to reside in the forest after giving up a life of material enjoyment. On the path of gradual advancement, such persons, if they are fortunate, can ultimately realize the transcendental beauty of Vrindavan. Those who are in the mode of passion are busy establishing their name and fame while either living a life of material pleasure or accepting to detach themselves from such a life. Those who are in the mode of ignorance take pleasure in gambling and other such abominable activities. In these verses, the Lord clearly explains that all material phenomena may be divided into three divisions according to the modes of nature, and that there also exists a fourth, or transcendental division, that is Krishna consciousness, which elevates all aspects of human culture to the liberated platform. Okay, it is 8:29. Maybe I meant to write verse 26 here, not 36. That might have been my mistake, because that would make sense. How long is this? Okay, let's just finish with this last verse. Satvika karako sangi ragando rajasa smrita tamasa smriti viprashto nirguno madapashraya. A detached worker is in the mode of goodness. A worker blinded by attachment is in the mode of passion. And a worker with no conception of what is to be done and what is not to be done is in the mode of ignorance. A worker who has taken shelter of me is transcendental to the three material modes. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Those who are in the mode of goodness are inclined to solitary worship of the Lord, giving up all kinds of bad association. Those who are in the mode of passion are fully engrossed in sense gratification. And those who are in the mode of ignorance act whimsically, having no sense of discrimination. But pure devotees of the Lord are transcendental to the three modes of material nature, being under the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who live a life of seclusion, as well as those who mingle with sense enjoyers, if they associate with devotees of the Supreme Lord while maintaining their separatist mentalities, remain far from the platform of pure devotional service. All right, so that's our reading for today. We will continue tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Okay. There. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shishmad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shri Gurudev Ki Jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shishmad Shri Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Shri Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Shri Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityal Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Shri Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityal Pravishta Shri Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura Ki Jai. Nityal Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Nugakoriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopala Bhattadasa Raghunath, Shar Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanantari, Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Naam Acharya Shri Haridas Ṭhākura ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala, Gaura Mandala, Vraja Mandala, Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund ki jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Uddhava-gīta ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo Vrindaya Tulsi Devaya Priyaya Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatāya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sandubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranam to everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow to finish up this chapter and begin the next chapter. What is the next chapter? The next chapter is the Uddhava-gīta. All right. Jai Shri Radhe.